Hello, my name is Adam. I'm a student in ATU Donegal, and in this video I will show you the requirements for coding with Swift Playgrounds. Swift Playgrounds is an app designed by Apple to familiarize yourself with Swift, a coding language designed by Apple to develop many apps you see on the App Store today. The requirements for Swift Playgrounds, first you'll need an iPad with iOS 14 or later. This is what I'll be using for the next few videos you'll be watching. You also need an Apple Store ID. This is just to install it and allow you to install it, as well as a stable internet connection. This is to install some of the playgrounds you see at the bottom of my screen here already, as well as the app itself. I'll let you go do that now, and in the next video we'll install it and adding Learn to Code 1. Thank you. After completing the requirements section, we're going to now go on to the App Store where we're going to install Swift, and once we're in Swift we're going to add Learning to Code 1. To install Swift Playgrounds, navigate to your App Store and search Swift Playgrounds. It's already there for me, but on the right here it says update for me as well. However, it should say get for you, and just tap the get button. It might ask you for a few verifications, you just do that, and then once it's installing you just navigate back to your home screen and wait for it to pop up there, and that's the Wii Playgrounds icon at the top left of my screen there. Once that's installed, just tap it. Adding playgrounds is easy in Swift Playgrounds. Once opening the app, navigate to the bottom of the screen. At the bottom right there, you see a See All button. Once you do that, you can see a Learn to Code and Build Apps. We're looking for Learning to Code 1, so I'm just going to swipe up right here until I can see Learn to Code 1, and there it is. And just like the App Store, you're just going to get, and it'll navigate you back to the home page here, and you're just going to wait for that to install. Thank you. And in the next section, we're going to familiarize ourselves with the code environment Swift provides for us. Thank you. In the previous section, we installed Swift Playgrounds, as well as the Learn to Code 1 playground that you see on my screen. So just go ahead and tap Learn to Code 1 when you're ready there, and you'll be faced with an introduction. Just read this in your own time, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to go straight to issuing a command. And I'm just going to straight away disable the audio, which is going to be a section here at the top right. There we are. So now we're just going to get good with the playground UI. We have a nav bar at the very top left. This just shows you where you are. A description of our level, our objectives, and our input box. That's the tap to enter there. To the right, we have visual representation of our output. So if I were to add code, which I can do at the bottom here, and I were to run it, we'll see that we can see the output happening in real time. This is a really good way to learn Swift, as seeing it just in a normal output text, say something in Visual Studios, sometimes it's good to have a visual representation rather than just the words on the screen. You can swipe right on this wee playground here. You can swipe left. You can zoom in, zoom out. At the top left of this wee screen, you can see a gem counter. This is our objectives. You'll be collecting gems throughout the playgrounds. You can run the code there. You can change the speed of the speedometer, and you get a wee hint. You can add code, as I said previously, with move forward, collect gem. There's going to be more throughout the playgrounds, but just as we're getting familiar, we only have these. So I'm just going to run the code now. Perfect. In these playgrounds, you can see that there's tiles. Each move forward function represents a tile, and if I were to add just one, that wouldn't be enough. You can see there. Within the playgrounds, we're eventually going to get way more efficient at this. However, this is what we're faced with now. It will get harder as time goes on. In the next section, we're going to start going through some of the levels. In that section, I suggest pausing before each level, trying it out yourself, and then following the video along to see if you got it right. In the previous section, we got familiar with the Learn to Code environment. So if you haven't watched that section, I suggest doing so, because I will be doing things in here assuming that you already know how to use the environment. So I'm just going to tap the bottom left here, which is going to bring up my code at the bottom. As I said before, Swift is separated into tiles, our playground separated into tiles. So if I were to move forward, I do that by tapping the move forward function there, and I were to run my code, he's only going to move one tile. In order to rectify that, I'm going to tell him to move forward again. That's going to put him there, and we're just going to run it and see what happens. As a programmer, you're never going to just write all the code at once. You're always going to do it step by step. That just removes any risk of bad code in the future. Say if you were to have a mistake, you have to go through it all over again. However, it's good to just do it step by step so that doesn't happen. So he's now where we want him to be, but he's not facing the right direction. So if I were to tell him to turn left, it's important to note that he's only going to turn on the tile we tell him to, and he's not going to move to the tile left of him. Let me just show you what I mean by that now. So he's moving forward, and there he will turn left. Just to finish this level off, he just needs to move forward onto that gem. And obviously, bit here, that's our character, needs to collect the gem. So I'm going to run this code step by step, just to show you. I'm zooming out just to get a better view. He's moving forward, he'll turn left on the tile, and now he's collecting the gem. That's the end of adding a new command. In the next session, we're going to toggle a switch. A switch is just something as well as a gem that we have to activate. You'll see in the next section. In this section, we'll be toggling a switch. In the previous section, I'll just hit the nav bar here, we see we have done adding a new command, and we're going to move on to toggle a switch. So in this one, we're faced with not only a gem, but also a switch. A switch will be turned on when you see the center of it glowing. And at the top left, we also have the new switch counter, as well as the gem counter. So that just lets us know that not only is there a gem for us to collect, there's a switch we must turn on. A switch might be toggled open or closed. Closed switches are off and awaiting activation. Open switches are on and show a light inner core. So we're just going to enter the command to move back to the gem, and then collect it, and then toggle the switch. So I'm just going to tap to enter code, and we can see we also have a new function called toggle switch. So I'm just going to move it here so we have a better view of our tiles. And we're going to move forward, turn left, move forward, collect gem. And we're just going to do that first. Because as I said in the last section, if I were to do it all in one go and it doesn't work, I'd have to go through all the code I've just written to see where the problem is. And probably have to change the code all over again. So I'm just going to run it step by step there. And that seems to work perfect. And luckily, Swift Playground leaves our guy exactly where he is, so we know what we have to do next to finish the wee mission we have here. So from where he is, we know that he's going to need to move forward and turn left again. He's going to move forward and toggle the switch. That means he'll be on the switch when he toggles it. So I'm just going to cycle through the code again. Perfect. That is the end of the toggling a switch section. The next section will be portal practice. In the previous section, we did toggling a switch, which has introduced us to switches, just as well as the gems. So in this section now, we have portals. Portals is just a wee fun thing Swift Playground has put in. So it adds a little bit extra of a challenge throughout these levels. And when you go on to do the next few levels, you'll see that you'll have to think about more complex code in order to get through the portals. Portals, you just stand in them, and then Bit will exit from the direction he's standing. So we're just going to go through this level as normal until we hit one of the portals. So here we have Bit. We know that he needs to move 3 tiles just to get to the left turn that he's going to have to do with that switch. We need him to turn left so he's facing it. And I'm just going to run the code there to make sure it actually works. and I haven't overshot it. Perfect. Then I need him to move forward, and we're just going to tell him to toggle the switch there. I'm just going to run it faster to make sure he does all that. That seems to have worked. So now move forward onto that portal. And we're just going to see what the portal does for us here. I'm going to run it just at a little bit of a faster speed. So as I said earlier, he exits the direction he's facing. So what we can do now is we can tell him to move forward, turn left, move forward, and see if he's on the gem there. And I'm just going to run it the fastest since we now know what the portal looks like. There. And now we're just going to tell him to collect gem, and that should be that level done. And that's the end of portal practice. So now we're on to finding and fixing bugs. In this section, it's a great reminder that in the world of programming, we won't just be making really cool code all the time, albeit it's most of our times. But another section of our time will be us plonked into huge groups of teams, maybe if it's Call of Duty, or even just a small group project in school. We'll have to look at other people's code, or even our own code, go through it, and see if there's any problems with it. So in this example, Swift Playgrounds has given us a bit of code that doesn't run properly. It doesn't have the output that we want. The output we want is obviously to get the gem and the switch turned on and collected. So we're just going to run it step by step here and see what's wrong. So we see that he misses the turn there. He just does it a bit too early. And just before I start this myself, I'm going to give you just a second to try figure out this yourself. So you can pause the video and come back and see if you got it right. So hopefully you got it right, but just in case you're a bit stuck, what we'll be doing here is just rectifying the code a little bit. So he's moving forward, that's correct, but he's not moving forward enough. So what I'm going to do is move forward in here. I'm just going to make sure now that he does that. So there. As we can see, he's clearly moving on to the right spots, but now he's just overshooting that gem, and that's not what we want. So what we can do is we can just remove this extra move forward. And I'm just going to make sure that he collects this gem now. What we actually find here is that one fix to collect the gem just fixed the rest of the code. And that's an important thing to learn there, that maybe it's just a problem in the center of the code rather than the whole code. And you won't have to just completely delete code in order to rectify it. Sometimes it can easily just be this one misinput or even a spelling mistake in most cases. So it's an important lesson here so early on that you won't just have to try again from scratch. You can work with what you got and see if there's anything you can do to replace it. Next, we'll be moving on to just a bit more bug fixing. The session is called Bug Squash Practice, and I'll see you over there. So in this section, Swift Playgrounds puts it quite simply. We'll be practicing the bug finding skills that we accumulated from the previous section, which was finding and fixing bugs. So here I'm just going to do exactly what we did in the last section, where I'm just going to step through the code and see what the problem is. We definitely don't want him doing that. So Swift Playgrounds also puts this perfectly. Notice that one of the switches on this map starts out open, If by toggles that switch closed, it's a bug in our code. So remember, we want all the switches to be toggled on by the end of our code. That's our output, as well as all the gems collected. So in him moving up to that switch and turning it off, it's actually just quite simply a bug. Instead of deleting all this code, which I preached in the last section, it's good to just work with what we got. So we know that he's moving way too far forward, and he's actually going on to that switch and turning it off. But what we can do instead is just tell him to move once, and we can see that he's turning left. So we're just going to make sure that he goes up those steps. So I'm going to step through the code again. But now it's just toggling that switch a bit too early. So what I'm going to do now is just after that turn left, we're just going to tell him to move forward a bit further onto that switch, and hopefully he'll be toggling it then. So as I've preached before, just always run through the code and make sure you have the first thing on your list working before moving on. So now that's what's happening, is we're just collecting the gem a bit too early there. So I'm just going to move the collect gem code about. So that's there. And we're going to collect the gem. So I'm just going to run through the code a bit faster now that we know that the switch is working and he's going on through the portal. And there we are. So not only did I not just delete all of our code, I actually just rearranged some of the code that we already provided. And that's essentially what you want to be doing when you're bug squashing. You know, you never want to just start from scratch, because you could have lines of code of 1,000, 2,000, and to have all those hours of work just absolutely deleted and having to start from scratch, that's simply not good enough. You know, you could be near the deadline of the project, or in your workplace, or even at school. So you'll just have to work with what you have. So I hope that's a valuable lesson there on finding and fixing bugs, as well as bug squashing in general. And move on to the next section. And just before you watch the next video, give it a shot yourself and see if you get it. So personally, I believe that this is the most important section in Swift Playgrounds, and that's the shortest route. The shortest route is technically preaching, like, what is the most efficient code? What is the best way you could possibly get the output? And that's what I preach when I'm teaching anyone how to code. It's the efficiency of code and the readability of it. But we're going to just focus specifically on the efficiency of code right now. So first, I don't even want you thinking about the code, and I want you to look at the level that Swift Playgrounds has put out for us. We know there's two portals. We have a green one and the blue ones, so 4 in total. We can either tell Bit to go straight left, forward, left again, and go into those blue portals, and forward again, get the switch, then he can go forward through the green and collect gem. But we could also just collect the gem, go through the green portal, and then get that switch. So pattern recognition in code in general is like, what is the best way we can possibly get something to recur, or what's the most efficient way we can get the output, is basically what I'm saying. So just before we go, I want you to give this a shot yourself by either choosing the green or blue portals, and I want you to collect the gem and toggle the switch. I'll let you do that now. So I'm going to go ahead here and start. So I'm going to choose the green portal for no apparent reason. I just believe that it could be the fastest way. However, I highly suggest experimenting with the blue one at least. And I'll even go through the blue one just at the end of this video to prove efficiency. So at the beginning, I'm just going to move forward 3 times, get myself on that gem, and we're going to collect it. And we're just going to run through the code and see if that works. There we go, we got our gem. Now we're going to move forward again, just through that portal. And remember, he exits the direction that he's already facing through the portal. So we're going to step through it again. And he's already facing that switch, so there's no need to rotate. We're just going to move on to that switch and toggle it. And we're just going to run it at normal speed here. Lovely. So Swift Playgrounds actually spoils it for us there. That is the shortest route. However, I'm just going to go through the blue route to show you that it's not, the green way is not the only way you can do it, although it is the most efficient. So I'm just going to delete all the code here. So to use these blue ones, we'll have to turn left, move forward, turn left, move forward onto that blue portal. I'm just going to run it and make sure this works. I'm going to move forward and toggle this switch. I'm just going to run it in a faster pace here. Just going to move forward through that green portal now, instead of rotating the whole way back. Finally, I'm just going to move on and collect that gem, and I'm going to run this at the fastest pace. So as we can clearly see, it wasn't the most efficient route by any means. However, we still got the same output, and that's the key thing to take away here, that you can still get the same output. However, it might just not be as efficient as the person next to you. And sometimes it doesn't even need to be, so long as you get the output. Although it's always best to aim for as much efficiency as possible. So that's the end of this chapter. So what we've done is essentially issuing commands. We've got new commands. We've just seen the basic mechanics of Swift Playgrounds. We've learned how to squash bugs, and we've also learned about efficiency. This was all done in the first section called Commands in Swift Playgrounds. I'll move on now to just the first 2 sections of functions in the next section. And if you're feeling confident enough, do it ahead of me, and then watch the videos again to make sure you've done it right. So congratulations again as far as the functions section. By this point you should have done all of the commands section. That included the issuing commands all the way down to the shortest route. This would have just taught you how to add commands, the mechanics of Swift Playgrounds, and just as well as like code efficiency and finding and fixing bugs. Now we're going to be really diving into the efficiency of code and a really common practice in the world of programming, not just for Swift, but for almost all the languages that even I know about right now. And that's functions. Please do introduction just before watching the rest of this section of the video, as what it says will help you understand functions maybe even better than I could describe. So in the introduction, it dives into the idea of a shoelace and how you tie them every morning on your way to school. You know, you'll wake up, you'll put on the shoe, and without even thinking, you might just immediately tie the shoelaces. Now, think of that as if it's just a recurring thing in your head that you're calling that when you put on a shoe. So if you were to think like a computer right now, you'd tell the computer to put on a shoe, and then you'd call it and say, hey, put on the shoelace. We can call it put on shoelace, and the computer will just do it. And that's a lot like what we do waking up in the morning, although you don't think it. And that's what functions are. They're pre-written code that you can call later. And what that allows you to do is like enhance the efficiency of your code tenfold, and it will save you a lot of lines in the future. So in this first example, I'm not actually going to write any function yet, and I'm going to show you the inefficiency of not having a function. So here we actually have a slight issue. So as you can see in the code, or in the level, pardon me, we're going to be moving forward, but obviously that's a right turn there. And as you can see in the bottom of my screen, I've collect gem, move forward, toggle switch, but I have no turn right, I only have a turn left. So the only way we can turn right in this instance is turning left 3 times. And what that will do is it will face us in the right direction. So what I'll do now is just turn left without moving anywhere, and I'll show you. So there we are, we're facing right now. So what we need to think of this here is how can we shorten that down, and what we'll be doing in the next section is just that we'll be shortening it down, so we'll turn right, and we can do that instead of turning left 3 times every single time in our code. But that's getting too far into it for this section right now. Right now I'm just going to tell them to move forward and turn right, or turn left 3 times in this case. And I'm just going to make sure that works, because no matter how far ahead you get in a section, it's always important to keep running through the code. So you can see that I even just overshot it there now. So I'm just going to remove and move forward. And then since he's there now, I'm just going to make sure that works. That looks better now. It looks like he's not going for a swim. Now we're just going to move forward onto that gem and collect it. And we're just going to run the code again. So as it says here, by commanding 3 left turns, you enabled your character to turn right, even though there's no command for that. This is called composition, where you combine existing code to complete a new task. So that's what I said before. You can combine code to call it later, and you'll hear me saying call it a lot. That's just a way us programmers know that we can get pre-existing code and put it into a later extension of existing code. So in the next section, I'll be making a function and calling it later. So in this section, we'll be creating a new function. In the previous section, you've seen that I was turning right by turning left 3 times. We'll still be doing that in this section, but what I'll be doing instead is, instead of typing turn right, or pardon me, turn left, turn left, turn left 3 times every single time I want to turn right, I'm just going to do it once, and then I can call it later. So you can give this section a go real quick. Just read the wee goal and description on the left there and see if you can figure out functions just before I start off the rest of this video. I'm just going to go on ahead here. So we know to turn right, that's what our function is called, turn right. To turn right, we need to turn left 3 times. So I'm just going to shove it in there. And that won't do anything. If I were to run my code now, you can see that bit just stands there because it's in his head, but we're not telling him to do it. And we can dumb that down a little bit more and say that the computer knows how to turn right, but we're not telling the computer how to do it. So what I'm going to do there is call it, and to do that I just type in the name of the function, as you can see there, turn right with the closed brackets. And you can see there now he's beginning to turn right. And the only way he knows how to do that is turn left 3 times. But that's no bother. So I'm just going to continue with this code. I'm just going to reset the placement of bit there. Perfect. So now I'm just going to continue with this code as if it's normal. So I'm going to move forward, and we can just turn left here. Move forward, turn right. Move forward, turn right again, and let's move on to that portal. And we're just going to run through the code and see if it works. And you can see there, since I'm running through the code, when we say turn right, it goes straight up to that function again and turns left 3 times. That's a really good visual representation of what a function is doing when it's being called. So now we just need to turn right again. We can just reorientate ourselves to realize that. We need to move forward, turn left, move forward, and toggle the switch. And I'm just going to step through the code one more time. And I really want you to pay attention on how or what happens when turn right is called. And look at the arrows. So it goes straight back up to the function here. Turn left, turn left, turn left. Move forward, calls turn right again. So in this section, you've noticed that if we hadn't had that function, we'd have to turn left 9 or 12 different times, and that would immediately elongate our code way more than it would need to be. And that's just proving that efficiency is really plausible, especially when we have our functions. So congratulations again this far. I'm sure that you'll be able to get on to the next sections with absolutely no bother. Although I do hope they pose some sort of fun challenge for you. And thanks for watching. Congratulations on getting to the end of this lesson. I really hope you enjoyed and got good insight into the world of Swift, just as well as the world of programmers in general. I highly encourage you to keep coding and try out other lessons in Dojamor. This video is available for a month at the link below, so you can pop back and recreate exercises seen on the video, or just even go back and experiment with this coding language. It was an absolute pleasure hosting these videos. Thank you for listening.